Hey everyone, Road Breach here, and today we're taking a look at Transformers Earthspark Expedition. Transformers Earthspark Expedition is an open-world beat-em-up developed by Tessera Games and published by Outright Games for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series S and X, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch on October 13th, 2023. I wasn't able to cover this the second it came out because I was busy making videos for Halloween, but since Halloween is over, I can finally cover this game. But before we do, I want to discuss the bit of Earthspark I didn't review. Skip here to avoid spoilers. The Terrans found alt modes, some familiar faces showed up, one of the ghost agents was working with Mandroid, and Mandroid got some upgrades for the final fight. Nightshade, Jawbreaker, and Hashtag were able to get plenty of development throughout this past stretch of episodes, and this is where the theme of xenophobia was most present. I really don't want to talk politics in this section, so I'll say that I feel the writing staff was misguided here. The big name voice actors like Roger Craig Smith and Keith David were fun to see here, and we even got to see Quintus himself. There are some things that I'm curious to see what becomes of them in the future, and if those leaks are any indication of what's to come for Season 2, then Season 2 is gonna be pretty wild. Season 1 of Earthspark is pretty good, but let's get back to the game. I think you know how much I hate Transformers Battlegrounds for boring me to sleep and being one of several game genres that Transformers shouldn't be. Here's my list of game genres if you were curious about that. I'm still not going to make a full review on this game because my biggest issue with it comes down to the fact that it's a genre that I hate, and I highly doubt you want to hear 20 minutes of me complaining about that. But this game is a genre that I actually like, so I think it should be more entertaining for you to watch. But was I right to be excited for this game? Well, let's gear up, roll out, and see what this game has to offer. The graphics are alright. The lighting looks way more dynamic, and that's comparing the PC version of Battlegrounds to this. Even though there's no NPCs populating the levels look really good and have plenty of decoration, making them feel like these could actually be locations you could find somewhere on Earth. The character models are also very accurate to their show counterparts. If the same level of care that Transformers Prime had when making the cutscenes there was brought here, then you'd have a tough time telling the two apart. The enemies in this game are a mishmash of different parts of characters from the show, like this guy having Swindle's head and torso, but also having Bumblebee's leg. And one part on this guy that I knew I could place was that this arm belongs to Hardtop. Some of the parts could be unique, and even though I can't place some of the parts of these characters, they do still look like they belong in this game. They spawn in with these orange pixels, which makes me believe these guys are made from the hologram tech from episode 13. I did say that this game doesn't look the best for this generation, and I was right to say that because there are some details here that look off. The water refraction will reflect your entire foot even when it's barely in the water. Some foliage looks noticeably flat, and the dark from this particular area stands out when it should be obscured by the distance haze. But those are just small issues I had with the visuals. Like I said, the cutscenes didn't have a lot of care put into them. The characters have one or two mouth animations that play whenever a character stands there and speaks, and the game has very basic cinematography. I did like the depth of field change here, but there's not much effort put into the in-game cutscenes. But there is a pre-rendered cutscene, but it's a comic book style cutscene that feels way more like an animatic than an actual cutscene. But I will give credit here, because I think the art style looks way better than the actual show. As for the audio, the voice acting is okay, but I've heard better from other Transformers games. The original voice cast didn't reprise their roles here. Some of the sound-alike actors they got are spot on, where you'd need to be actively looking for differences in the voices from the show and the game. But some sound-alike actors are very different from the original voice, namely Alex, Nightshade, Optimus, and of course Grimlock. Alan Tudyk isn't a replacement for Peter Cullen, but Alan did a good job with this version of Optimus. The sound-alike actor here doesn't have a deep enough voice for Optimus. Speaking of voices, some of the dialogue is just straight up awful.
Was that humor? I really need to develop a new subroutine for that.
That's all the motivation I need. Show me where, and I'll be there.
Twitch warned me about this strange quirk in your operating system.
And characters are inconsistent with how they are in the show.
Isn't finding things what you're supposed to be good at?
Nightshade was not like that in the show. Nightshade wasn't a rude dickhead like they are here. And I get they're robots, but they don't need to develop subroutines to understand things like comedy or sarcasm. Like I said in my trailer analysis, it seems any company that works for Outright doesn't seem to understand Transformers. The music is pretty good. There's techno-synth and rock music when you're in combat, and I like the song that plays on the title screen. The soundtrack isn't on the same level as Transformers Devastation's epic soundtrack, but it's passable. But the sound design is hit or miss, because the transformation sound can get cut off sometimes when you go into robot mode and do something immediately after you're done transforming. And that's just one example of this type of thing happening in this game. I even found every other sound effect getting cut off for a second after I found one of the glyphs, and it took a few seconds for them to come back.
Another card to add to my collection.
I also don't understand why the bosses don't make the transformation sound when they transform. This is a strange oversight, and I don't understand why nobody else makes the sound. But at the very least, I can flip back and forth and listen to that iconic sound effect. Another positive point that I can give to the presentation is that the boss health bars have these fun little borders around them. I do like some more than others, but this is an aspect I can definitely get behind, and I wish it was present in games like Devastation. I also like when you pick your save file, Bumblebee transforms and rolls out. So the presentation is okay, but how does this game play? The game is an open-world brawler. You're dropped into one of 3 big maps, and you're given some enemies to fight, activities to do, and collectibles to find. The main thing you need to do in each location is shut off these arachnodrills by defeating enemy groups, defeat a mini-boss, then destroy all the generators. There was one arachnodrill that I had a hell of a time trying to get to, because it wasn't clear where I was supposed to go to get past the gate. The combat is more involved than I thought it was going to be. You start the game with a 3-hit punch combo and kick combo, and you can hold either button down to create an area of effect or launch the enemy in the air respectively. And if you launch an enemy in the air, you can follow that up with an air combo, but the animation isn't different from how it is on the ground. But the enemy is immobilized in the air, so you do have a reason to do it. Much like Devastation, some enemies have states of invulnerability, which makes button mashing a bad idea. A lot of the time, when you're fighting one enemy, another will try to attack you, whether it be from range or up close, so you need to use the dodge roll. You also have a gun that does so little damage you won't use it most of the time, but it can stun enemies, and it comes in handy when there's a turret that you can't reach, and it locks onto the closest target. Enemies also have a blue stun bar underneath their red health bar, which fills up considerably when you use kicks or the gun, and when it fills up all the way, they're immobilized for a few seconds. This isn't something that I paid too much attention to, because I mainly just used whatever attack I wanted to. You can also buy upgrades, but what do you use to buy upgrades? Coins? Experience? Energon? Nope, you use scrap that you get from defeating enemies or from crates strewn around the level. You can upgrade your health, make kits more effective, buy more moves, buy special attacks, and augment abilities like the stun. There's 2 upgrades that I want to give special attention to: Focus and Shield Overcharge. Focus activates when you perfectly dodge an enemy attack, which will turn on slow motion, giving you the opportunity to get some easy hits in, which can be upgraded to last longer and give you more health. Shield Overcharge causes enemy shields to explode when you break them, and cause area effect damage. I love this upgrade, and it's very satisfying. Special attacks have some good variety. There's Turning Point that has Bumblebee doing a donut to hit enemies multiple times, Sharpshooter which has a massive beam that shoots straight, Gunslinger which acts as a massive shotgun blast that hits multiple enemies in front of you, Cannon Crush that creates an area effect of damage, Bullet Car that has Bumblebee transform and ram whoever's in your way, and Beat 'em Up that makes Bumblebee evoke Saitama. These special attacks get charged by attacking enemies, and you can pick which one you want to use by hitting L1. The first enemies you start with are the mercenaries that have batons and attack you at close range. Later in the game, they'll create shockwaves that you need to dodge. There are gunners that will fire at you when you're caught up fighting someone else, and they'll barrage you with missiles later in the game. I feel like it was a missed opportunity to make these guys more aggressive. Marauders have a 2-hit combo and a leg sweep that they get later in the game. These guys are like more aggressive versions of the mercenaries. There are Guardians that have shields that they'll ram into you, which you can shoot at to break and make it easier to fight them. And later in the game, Guardians will get batons much like the mercenaries. Shooting the shield to break it kinda reminds me of Doom Eternal, when you use the plasma rifle to destroy the shields in that game. There are brutes that have hammers that have slow powerful attacks that take a big chunk out of your health. and mystics will throw spinning blades at you that you need to dodge. There are turrets and mortars that shoot lasers and barrage you with missiles respectively. There are also defenders of different varieties that combine several aspects of the base enemies and are kind of like mini-bosses. Wait, did you say mystic? Yeah, I did. Since when was there magic in Transformers? I don't think there ever was. I don't even think these guys are supposed to be magical. Then why are they called mystics if they aren't mystical? Walter, I think you're making a bigger fuss out of this than it's really worth. I'm just saying they could have called them anything else. Okay, can I get back to my review? Yeah, sure. Anyway, there's plenty of enemy variety, which helps to keep the combat from feeling super repetitive. That said, the combat isn't without some problems. For example, the enemy AI can often get caught on the scenery and get stuck, making it easy to defeat them. Enemies also have a very short sensor range, so if you decide to dodge roll out of it, they'll completely forget that they were fighting somebody, and if you shoot at them, they won't try to look for who's shooting at them. How did this even get past QA testing? One part that doesn't completely ruin the combat but gets incredibly irritating is the camera. It normally follows you and stays behind you when you're on the move, be it on foot or in vehicle mode. But when you're in combat, the camera will rotate to the side so you can see the fight easier. The problem comes in when you're fighting in an enclosed space and start landing attacks on an enemy. The camera will run into a wall and make the screen jitter. This doesn't happen in Devastation, Transformers Prime, or Spider-Man. It gets annoying that this brain-dead camera will try to drive itself into a wall when it could have gone the other way so it wouldn't have made the screen jitter and possibly give people seizures. Okay, that could be embellishing the problem, but it doesn't make it any less irritating for somebody who doesn't have epilepsy. And Primus help you if there's any trees nearby, because there's no translucency feature, so the trees are going to obstruct your vision. Luckily, the camera problems don't happen all the time, but dear lord did this camera need some more fine-tuning. Or better yet, leave the camera alone because I can see who I'm fighting just fine! Earlier, I mentioned kits, and you're probably wondering what they are. Kits are power-ups that use with the D-pad that you can find around the levels, which help you in one of a couple ways. There are 2 different health kits that give you a certain amount of health, with small ones and big ones. You can find a lot of these around the level, which makes the combat pretty easy. You also have strength boosters that make you deal more damage, and defense boosters that ups your resistance to attacks, making you take less damage. They work, but they don't feel as useful as they should right off the bat. You transform by hitting R1, and you move pretty fast in vehicle mode. You'll mainly use it to travel around the map, but it can be used to run into enemies and deal some damage, though dealing damage is mainly for robot mode. The driving controls are pretty good. You move the left stick forward to accelerate and move it left or right to steer. One thing I had an issue getting used to was the drifting, because you need to hold the left stick back to start drifting just as you're about to make a turn. There's also small bits of platforming, but you don't have complete control over your jumping arc. Whenever you jump from one platform to another, you need to be committed to your jumping arc, because you do not have any meaningful influence on your trajectory after you leave the ground. Let's talk about the other activities you can do. There are enemy camps around the map. You can go and fight enemies in these camps, which you deal with in waves, and once they're all gone, the camp becomes a fast travel spot, which is also the case with the Arachnidrill sites. There are also side quests with the Terrans, so let's cover each one. Twitch's side quests are races, where you drive through rings in order, which I was happy to play because the driving controls are good enough to where I was happy to do them. However, there was one race where the track was way too small to where you need to make super sharp turns. I hate this race. Put literally any other side quest here because a race was not the right one to put here. Another small issue I have with these quests is that they don't have a mini-map like how other racing games usually have. Plenty of these races require you to do multiple laps, but ultimately they're pretty easy because Twitch doesn't really put up much resistance. Other than that, I like this minigame. Thrash's side quests are combat challenges where you need to quickly take out groups of enemies. This is where the ranking system really comes into play, as you need to do things very fast to get gold. Whether or not you get gold, you get components that you can use with the scrap to buy upgrades. There was probably a better way I could have mentioned that, but Nightshade side quests are typically finding 3 copies of their map scanner as fast as you can. It's best that you have 2 minutes left to spare with these. I had to do these several times, and I find it ridiculous that these are on time limits. Why not just make these harder to find like an actual scavenger hunt? And Nightshade being a smarmy asshole doesn't help.
Isn't finding things what you're supposed to be good at?
Excuse me, young bot. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? I found what you wanted me to find. Just because I didn't find it in 30 seconds doesn't mean I'm bad at finding them. I'll respect your pronouns, but I will not tolerate this disrespect towards me. Yeah, Nightshade isn't like this in the show. Another problem with these challenges is that with this specific one, you need to straight up ignore their directions. There's also a few of these challenges that require you to shoot switches to get the map scanner. Hashtag's quests are escort missions, and you need to protect her from enemies in order to earn gold. And to get gold, you need to keep her signal above 60%. And finally, we have Jawbreaker's quests, where you need to protect some satellites from a couple of waves of enemies, and you'll get gold if you keep the satellite's strength above 60% once again. I like the idea of these challenges, but considering this game is based on Transformers Earthspark, they probably should have copied Devastation.
Hear me out.
There are 5 playable characters in Devastation, and there are 5 Terrans that could have been selected from the Ghost Base. Each one could have had different stats to give them their own playstyle. Each one of the Terrans could also have their own special attack. Twitch could have a blade dash, Thrash could use a spare tire like a batarang, Hashtag could hack an orbital satellite to use as an airstrike, Nightshade could use the clones they had in that one episode, and Jawbreaker could have a powerful shockwave created by slamming the ground in Dino mode. And instead of the side quests being from the Terrans, they could be from the Autobots we see in the show. They probably wanted to do this, but I imagine they probably didn't have the money and time to do it. But even then, the game we got is the game Battlegrounds should have been. It would have made more sense because Bumblebee is the main character in Cyberverse. Shockwave, you want to weigh in on this?
I am usually a bot of logic and reason. However, I will make an exception for such illogical blasphemy!
Oh, right, the collectibles. I nearly forgot about them. For the collectibles, you have the cards and glyphs. The cards depict characters from the show and have biographies that you can read. At least they're Earthspark versions anyway. They even have Mandroid's final form from the finale. Unfortunately, these biographies are hard to read because the ones that are too long to fit on the screen automatically scroll. Why not just allow me to scroll when I want to? This shouldn't be that hard. I also have to point out that Nightshade's bio says gender doesn't define who they are, but gender never defined anyone else in this franchise. Even when they made that G1 episode that had female Autobots, they weren't defined by their gender. I don't let my gender define me, so saying that Nightshade isn't defined by gender is a null point. As for the glyphs, they're fragments of Transformers quotes that you can view at the Ghost Base. Let's start talking about the story. The game opens with Bumblebee contacting the Maltos about how he ran into Arachnomechs. Robbie is puzzled as to why Mandroid's Arachnomechs are still around, and B says they may have to do some investigating, and tells the kids to keep the Terrans occupied until he gets back. Twitch believes that a sweep for Arachnomechs is in order, but Robbie decides to occupy them with some roleplay, which is basically a summary of what happened between this game and the show. Bumblebee gets back, and you run through a tutorial, which ends off with a speed trial. Bumblebee and Alex get contacted by Optimus, and he tells them that he tracked the Arachnomechs to an abandoned ghost base, and he needs Bumblebee to investigate. Bumblebee asks if they should wait for Robbie and Mo to get back because they went with Dot and Megatron off screen, and Optimus says this can't wait and they actually need to find out if Mandroid is actually back. Optimus ends the call, and Alex finds it weird that Optimus was very abrupt with the call, but Bumblebee believes that he's just got a lot on his mind. They arrive at the ghost base, and Nightshade shows up and tells Bumblebee and Alex that Optimus thought they'd need backup. And we're brought to the lobby, where the other Terrans are helping Nightshade get the base back in working order. Alex asks what's wrong to Nightshade, and they tell Alex about this area of the base that's locked off and inaccessible, not even being able to be scanned. Bumblebee finds a stored message in Teletrain 1, and it's from Mandroid, and tells the Maltos that he's still trying to annihilate all Cybertronians with his robot army, empowered by Cybertronian technology found within planet Earth. So he plans to annihilate machine lifeforms using machines. Mandroid says they're welcome to try and stop him, and ends the message. Alex ponders what Mandroid means when he says he'd used technology from the depths of Earth, and Bumblebee puts forth a possibility that he has a mining operation. Bumblebee tells everyone to stay here and coordinate his efforts in the field, and he heads to Mandroid's first mining operation. Bumblebee gets to Canyon Road, and he contacts Optimus about the deep-level mining operation that's swarmed with Mandroid's goons, and Optimus tells him to shut down this whole operation fast.
It's time to kick metal ass plate.
Bumblebee, watch your language! This is a kid's game! So I go around liberating enemy encampments and destroy the first Arachnodrill. But Alex contacts Bumblebee and tells him that he needs to come back to Ghost Base because of Mandroid's perimeter defenses being difficult to navigate. This is mainly here to introduce you to the upgrade system, which I've already talked about. But while you're at the Ghost Base, you can also try out new moves you bought in the training room, and buy different boost effects, which I didn't really want. Let's get back to the canyon. As Bumblebee is about to destroy the last Arachnodrill, he runs into Skullcruncher and he says that he's the boss around these parts. And he pretty much spells it out that he's under Mandroid's control. Skullcruncher will swipe at you in robot mode, and after he uses it, there's a grace period where you can get some hits in. He also has a kick, and he'll transform into Gator mode to try and bite you. Gunners will also spawn in and make the fight more involved, though I think they either should have made the Gunners more aggressive, spawn in some mercenaries to make the fight more chaotic, or make the grace period shorter to keep you on your toes. The fight ends prematurely after you get him down to half health, and Bumblebee tells Skullcruncher that he's willing to show him some mercy because of the mind control. Bumblebee enters Mandroid's lair, and he says that he admires his pluck and tells Bumblebee that he's just warming up. Bumblebee finds it funny that he's hiding behind lackeys to do his dirty work, but Mandroid tells him that he has no idea about the stakes involved, and once again tells him that he intends to commit genocide against Cybertronians. Optimus contacts Bumblebee, and he tells him that he needs to find whatever Mandroid's looking for before Mandroid can get his hands on it. Bumblebee goes deep into the lair, and he runs into Skullcruncher again, and he tells B that the only way he's getting what they salvaged is by prying it from Skullcruncher's hands. Skullcruncher still has the swipe and the kick, along with Gunners accompanying him, but he can now dive underwater, and you can look where he is by looking at the water. You need to dodge out of the way the second the geyser disappears. He has a splash attack that I totally forgot about that he only used once in this fight, and mercenaries will spawn in to make the fight a little more chaotic. After B defeats Skullcruncher, he gets contacted by Optimus, and he tells him to get the tech Mandroid was looking for. Bumblebee tells him he knows what to do, but he doesn't know what he's looking for. Optimus says that all he can tell him over an open comm channel is that it's a piece of a larger Cybertronian device. Bumblebee tells Alex that he feels that some things are best left buried, and to open the ground bridge to put Skullcruncher in a containment cell at Ghost Space. Bumblebee finds the device, and as soon as he grabs it, it feels like a hit of pure velocity, and it gives Bumblebee the ability to boost, which comes in handy when crossing larger gaps. Bumblebee comes back to Ghost Space, and Alex asks what the device he found is for, and Bumblebee says he doesn't know. Bumblebee shows the device to Optimus, and he says that it's a part of an Energon activator which generates an EMP. He goes on to say that it was developed by Decepticon scientists, and they confiscated the prototype before it could be used and broke it up into multiple pieces and buried them on Earth. So this mining operation is one of 3, and Bumblebee needs to leave for the next dig site. Optimus sends Bumblebee the coordinates, and we leave for the Jungle Citadel. Bumblebee finds that this dig site is similar to the last one, and he asks Optimus if they need all 3 components, and Optimus puts forth the possibility that Mandroid could glean enough technical data to reverse engineer the missing parts of the weapon. Once again, go around, liberate encampments, and do the activities on your leisure. Speaking of which, this specific Thrash mission is straight up broken. Typically, these missions are pretty straightforward. Defeat one enemy group after the other as fast as you can. You can't defeat me. I'm the gingerbread man! No, but the way this part of the level is designed makes it so you need to trial and error your way into figuring out the optimal route to get the fastest time, and the enemies respawn, confusing you and making this part harder than it should be. I don't know if the enemies respawn in the other challenges, because the other ones are walled off, but this one challenge took me several tries to finally beat. Not helping is the fact that you can't just do the challenge again. So you're sat there, skipping all the dialogue until you can finally do it again. Granted, it's not too much dialogue you need to skip, but it's annoying that you can't just do it again after you fail it. Though I was able to get Nightshade to imitate Gura when skipping dialogue. This is also where the game crashed. I think it's because it has to instantly load the in-game animation of the special attack, and that, along with the enemies ganging up on me, is what caused it to crash. Except this didn't happen any other time with the same scenario. I'm not entirely sure what causes it to crash, but it did crash. This is also where the game breaks the fourth wall with this line.
Who writes your dialogue, Manny? Serial villains are us?
Say it with me, pointing out your problems doesn't make them go away. Bumblebee runs into Grimlock and we have a fight with him.
Enough talk! I am ready to rumble! How
You bet Jurassic!
What did I say about swearing, motherfucker?
Grimlock has a force field around him that you need to deactivate by destroying 3 generators. While you destroy the generators, Grimlock will shoot fire at you and try to jump on you when you get far away from him. After you destroy all the generators, you can now damage Grimlock and you have more space to move around. Grimlock will shoot fire at you and try to crush you, but he'll also bite you up close and swing his tail at you. Once you get him down to 69% of his health, nice, mercenaries and gunners will spawn in, and Grimlock will use this barrage attack that makes some areas dangerous for a few seconds. Grimlock also has a tackle that he only used once in this fight. After you defeat Grimlock, Bumblebee reports in and tells Alex to take him away, and he tells Alex that he feels confident that they have Mandroid on the ropes. Bumblebee gets the next part of the Energon activator, which gives Bumblebee a grappling hook and allows you to ascend to points that are marked with these little circles on the ground. It's not really fun nor unfun to use, it's just there. This is in contrast to the grappling hook from Fall of Cybertron that allowed you to grapple all over the place and had better sound design that made it more fun to use. Bumblebee gets back to Ghost Space, and Alex tells Bumblebee that Optimus seemed distracted and to just say well done. And Bumblebee feels like something is wrong, but he doesn't know exactly what. The last dig site is Glacial Mountain. Once again, liberate encampments, destroy arachnodrills, and do activities. There was also a point in this level when I was doing a combo and I got stuck halfway through transformation and couldn't move, and I needed to get hit to get knocked out of this state. One camp is guarded by Nova Storm, and Bumblebee feels honored that Mandroid sent a Seeker after him, but she's not the only one because Alex picks up another Spark signature, and Skywarp shows up and you fight them at the same time. Skywarp will teleport around the battlefield and slash at you with her buzzsaw, and Nova Storm will fire missiles at you that will track you, but you can shake them easily. Much like Skullcruncher, this fight will end prematurely, and Nova Storm swears revenge. I should also point out that this game has waypoints you can use, but they're damn near useless, because unlike other waypoint systems, you can't see them through walls, and you need to look up in the sky to see them. Once you get into the lair, it has a few endurance rounds of Marauders, Mercenaries, and Gunners. You have to shoot 3 switches to activate vent fans that will allow you to progress. You then come to a section with bucket wheels that you need to run away from like it's Crash Bandicoot. Bumblebee then runs into Nova Storm and Skywarp, and they want a rematch.
You're the meat in a Seeker sandwich, Bumblebee!
Yes, please, sandwich me. This go around, Skywarp will transform and circle around the arena to lunge at you and barrage you with bombs from above on top of the buzzsaw and teleporting. Nova Storm still has her missiles, but she now has a kick and missile barrage, and she'll transform to dive bomb you. This fight can get pretty hectic, so you better pay attention. This last component gives Bumblebee a charge shot that you use by holding down the right trigger. This comes in handy when you're faced with these reinforced gates. Bumblebee gets back to Ghost Space, and Alex tells him how proud he is that he was able to get these components. B asks if anything happened while he was gone, and Alex tells him that the inaccessible area of the base opened up, but Alex didn't check it out yet. Bumblebee opens the door, where he finds Optimus, who lets all the captives go free because he was under Mandroid's mind control all along. Optimus knocks out Bumblebee, and he wakes up and runs into Optimus and Mandroid. Mandroid explains that he uploaded his consciousness as a backup before their final battle, which allowed him to perfect his mind control patches. Bumblebee tries to get a hold of Alex, but Mandroid is now jamming Bumblebee's signal, and he orders Optimus to destroy him. Optimus will swing his axe at you 3 times, shoot his blaster at you, and transform and try to ram you. And Mandroid will join in by launching missiles and firing this massive beam at you. Once you get Optimus down to 2/3 of his health, you can grab a component, use it to get to one of these things, shoot it, and return to the battlefield. Optimus now has a lunge attack that has an area effect, and Mandroid now has a missile barrage and a fireball that creates shockwaves that you need to jump over. And Optimus can now block you. Get Optimus down to 1/3 of his health, and you can now grab another component and shoot the thing. The last phase has Optimus using the donut attack a lot, and both Optimus and Mandroid are the most aggressive in this last phase. Grab the last component, shoot at the last thing, and Mandroid is in disbelief that you beat him. He tries to use the mind-controlled captives against Bumblebee, but Alex comes in the nick of time and deactivates the mind control patch, and Bumblebee fires one last shot at Mandroid. Optimus congratulates Bumblebee and awards him and the Terrans medals of excellence, even though Bumblebee did all the real work. The bots get together for a group photo, and we cut to credits. After you beat the campaign, you can still go back and collect all the stuff you didn't get. And after that, I decided to buy all the trails, and I got the Platinum Trophy. It's not the first one I ever got, but I'll definitely keep this one the closest to my heart. There are cheat codes that give you more scrap and change the look of the game, but I think we're done here. I got my Platinum, and it's time for my final thoughts. Overall, this game is pretty good. Transformers Earthspark Expedition is thankfully more fun and involved than I thought it was going to be, but the game is very rough around the edges, with several design elements not being fully realized. I did have a good time with it, but your mileage will definitely vary, and I don't recommend getting it for full price. Thanks for watching, and gotta zoom.